If you're so smart, then pay your own damn bills. My mother didn't just say it, she spat it. Those words cut deeper than the 12-hour shift I'd just finished on the construction site. I was standing in the kitchen, still covered in concrete dust, my knuckles raw and bleeding from a slipped wrench, while she shoved a stack of pink disconnection notices into my chest like they were my death warrant. She didn't ask if I'd eaten. She didn't care that my back felt like it was being scorched by a blowtorch. She just stood there, her eyes glassy from a third glass of cheap boxed wine, looking at me like I was a parasite. I already gave you $900 on Friday, Mom. Where did it go? She let out a sharp, jagged laugh. It went to keeping a roof over your head. If you're so high and mighty, if you're such a big woman now, then handle it yourself. Prove you don't need me. Pay your own bills or get the hell out of my house. Something shifted in my chest. It wasn't the usual heavy guilt. It was cold. It was quiet. It was the sound of a bridge collapsing. I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I just turned around, walked into my room, and grabbed a duffel bag. I threw in my work boots, my laptop, and 3 years of bank statements I'd been hiding under the floorboards. Where do you think you're going? She shrieked from the hallway. I'm talking to you. Don't you dare walk away from me. I stopped at the front door, the handle cold in my hand. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she wasn't a mother anymore. She was a debt collector who used blood as collateral. You told me to pay my own bills, Linda, I said, my voice so steady it actually made her flinch. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. From now on, you're on your own. I walked out into the rain and didn't look back. I didn't answer her 72 missed calls that night. I didn't reply to the text calling me a traitor and a heartless bitch. I waited. I waited exactly 9 days. On the 10th morning, my phone buzzed. I knew it was coming. The grace period for the electric company was over. I picked up on the third ring. Natalie, the lights are out. She was screaming so loud the guy at the next table in the coffee shop actually jumped. The fridge is dead. I can't even make coffee. What did you do to the account? I took a slow, deliberate sip of my black coffee. It was the most expensive, most satisfying cup I'd ever tasted. I didn't do anything, Mom, I said. I just followed your advice. I started paying my own bills. And since I don't live there anymore, I'm not paying yours. The silence on the other end was absolute. It was the silence of a woman who had just realized her personal ATM had finally run out of cash. But she had no idea that a blacked-out apartment was only the beginning of my plan. If you've ever been treated like a paycheck with a heartbeat by the people who were supposed to love you, stay with me. Because by the end of this, you'll see how I outplayed a woman for whom family was just a synonym for fraud. To understand why I felt zero guilt hearing her sob in the dark, you have to understand the level of the betrayal. My name is Natalie. At least that's what my mom calls me when she wants something. To everyone else, I'm just the girl who works too much and says too little. For 24 years, money wasn't a tool in our house. It was a hostage. My father didn't just leave us when I was 10. He vanished. He left a note, a half-empty bottle of bourbon, and $14,000 in secret gambling debt. My mother, Sarah, didn't handle it like a martyr. She handled it like a predator. She realized early on that she could use her grieving widow status to make me feel like I owed her for the very air I breathed. When I was 16, I got my first job at a local garage. I was proud. I brought home my first check for $400. She took it before I could even smell the ink. We're a team, Natalie, she'd say, tucking it into her purse while buying a new pair of designer boots the next day. I sacrificed my youth for you. This is how we survive. By the time I was 20, we had become a joke. She stopped working entirely, claiming her nerves couldn't handle the stress of a retail job. So I worked. I worked construction during the day and hauled freight at night. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a social life. I had a mother who would text me, "Where's the rent?" while I was still on the clock. But the night of the big blow-up, the night I left, wasn't just about the $900. It was about what I found in the mailbox earlier that afternoon. I'd seen a letter addressed to me from a bank I didn't use. I opened it, thinking it was just junk mail. My heart stopped. It was a statement for a credit card with a balance of $12,422. Every single charge was for things I never touched: spa days, high end groceries, a down payment on a moped I'd never seen. She hadn't just been taking my paycheck, she had stolen my identity. She had opened 3 separate lines of credit using my social security number while I was asleep in the room next door. I sat in my car for 2 hours just staring at that number: $12,000. That was my future. My chance at moving out, at buying a truck, at finally starting a life. She had burned my credit score to the ground to buy fancy candles and expensive dinners while I was eating ramen in the break room. That's why, when I moved onto my friend Anna's couch, I wasn't just hiding, I was preparing. Anna is a paralegal. She knows how the system works. She sat me down that first night and looked at the statements. "Natali, this isn't family helping family," Anna said, her face grim. "This is a felony. She's been forging your signature on digital applications for 2 years. If you don't report this, you're liable for every cent. You'll be in debt until you're 40. "She's my mother, Anna," I whispered. "She's a thief who happens to share your DNA. Anna fired back. "Pick one, your life or her lifestyle, because you can't save both." I chose my life. The first step was the silent cut. I didn't just move out. I went to my bank and closed the joint account she had access to. I opened a new one at a credit union across town. I changed my direct deposit. Then I called the utility companies. The conversation with the electric company was the best part. "I'd like to close the account at 412 Maple Street," I told the agent. "Ma'am, there's an outstanding balance of $350, she said. "I'm aware. I'm paying that balance today to clear my name. But as of 5 p.m. today, I am no longer the responsible party. If the resident wants power, they'll need to open a new account in their own name." "Understood, Ms. Rossi. We'll process the disconnection for today." I hung up and felt a weight lift off my shoulders that had been there since I was 10 years old. I knew exactly what would happen. My mother didn't have a credit score. She didn't have a job. She couldn't open an account if her life depended on it. The blackout was the first bill she had to pay. When she called me screaming about the dark apartment, I didn't give her an inch. "Why would you do this?" she wailed. "I'm your mother. I'm sitting here in the dark like a dog." "You told me to pay my own bills, Sarah," I said, using her first name for the first time. It felt like armor. "I'm just doing what I was told. I'm paying for my lights. If you want yours on, I suggest you find a way to pay for them." "I don't have the money. You know I don't." "Then I guess you'll have to get used to the dark," I said, and I hung up. But she wasn't done. She tried the family shame tactic. 2 days later, my phone exploded. It was my Aunt Maria. The matriarch of the family, the one who decides who's a saint and who's a sinner. "Natali, I just got off the phone with your mother," Maria barked. "She's crying her eyes out. She says you've gone crazy. She says you stole her savings and left her to starve in a dark house. How could you be so cruel, after everything she did for you?" "Is that what she told you, Aunt Maria?" I asked, my voice cold. "She said you're punishing her because she asked you to help with the rent. She's your mother." "Maria, I want you to come to Anna's place tonight," I said. "Bring whoever you want. Bring the whole family. If I'm the villain, I want to be the villain to your face, but I'm bringing the receipts." That night, 4 of them showed up. My mom was there, looking pathetic in a borrowed shawl, acting like she was on her deathbed. Aunt Maria sat on the edge of the chair, arms crossed, looking at me with pure disgust. "Explain yourself," Maria demanded. I didn't say a word. I just walked to the coffee table and dropped a 3-inch thick binder. Inside were the credit card statements, the forged signatures, the logs of every dollar I had given her over the last 4 years versus the actual rent of the apartment. "Page 6, I said. "That's a $12,000 credit line opened in my name while I was working a double shift at the garage. Look at the charges, Maria. Look at the date. I was under a car in the rain while she was spending $1,500 at a designer outlet." Maria picked up the paper. Her eyes scanned the numbers. Then she looked at my mother. "Sarah?" Maria asked, her voice losing its edge. "What is this?" "She's lying," my mother shrieked, her voice cracking. "She's a liar. She gave me permission. She said she wanted to help me." "I was 19, Mom," I said, stepping into the center of the room. "I didn't even know what a credit score was. You told me those were insurance forms for the apartment. You lied to me for years. You didn't just take my money. You stole my future. You've been living like a queen on the back of a girl who hasn't bought herself a new pair of jeans in 3 years." I turned back to the family. "The lights are off because I'm not paying for them anymore," I said. "The rent isn't paid because I'm not the one living there. I've already filed a formal fraud report with the police. I've named her as the primary suspect." The room went dead silent. My mother's face went from victim to demon in 3 seconds flat. "You little ungrateful rat!" she screamed, lunging off the couch. "I should have left you at the hospital. I gave you life." "And then you tried to sell it," I said, not moving an inch. "I'm done, Mom. The police will be contacting you about the identity theft. The landlord has already been notified that I'm off the lease. You have 14 days to come up with the back rent or you're out." "You're evicting your own mother?" Aunt Maria whispered, but she wasn't looking at me with disgust anymore. She was looking at the binder. "No," I said. "The landlord is evicting a tenant who doesn't pay. I'm just a woman who finally started paying her own bills." The next week was a blur of legal meetings and blockades. I blocked her on everything. I didn't want to hear the pleas. I didn't want to hear the threats. But on the final day, the day the sheriff was scheduled to arrive, I went back. I didn't go to help. I went to watch the end of the story. When I pulled up to the curb, her stuff was already on the sidewalk. The pile looked small. It looked cheap. It didn't look like $12,000 worth of necessities. It looked like junk. She was standing by the door, arguing with a man in a uniform. When she saw my truck, she froze. She walked over to the window, her face having aged 10 years in a month. "Are you happy now?" she hissed, her voice trembling. "I'm homeless. My own daughter put me on the street. Is this the revenge you wanted?" I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to fix it. I didn't feel that crushing weight in my chest. I just felt light. "This isn't revenge, Sarah," I said. "This is just the total. You've been running up a tab on my life for 15 years. I just finally sent you the bill. I have nowhere to go. You have a brother. You have a sister. Maybe they'll let you stay," I said. "But I'd hide the credit cards if I were them." I rolled up the window and drove away. It's been 6 months now. My credit is still a mess, but it's healing. I have my own place. A tiny studio, but the lights stay on because I pay for them. Every Friday when I get my paycheck, I look at the number and I smile, because every single cent belongs to me. My mother is living in a basement apartment at my aunt's place. She has to work 20 hours a week at a laundromat just to pay for her groceries. She hates it. She sends me letters sometimes, telling me how cruel I am. I don't read them. I use them to start the fire in my small wood-burning stove. She told me to pay my own bills. And honestly, it was the best advice she ever gave me. Because once I stopped paying for her lies, I realized I was finally rich enough to be free. The lights are on, the debt is clearing, and for the first time in my life, I don't owe anyone a damn thing. Especially not family. If you're still listening, remember this. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. If they're bleeding you dry, they aren't your people. They're just parasites with your last name. Cut the cord, turn off the lights, and let them learn how to pay their own way. Because the moment you stop being their ATM is the moment you start living for real. I'm Natalie, and I'm finally debt-free.